So welcome to today's presentation about accessibility tools for all learners. So Google products have many built-in accessibility tools that are universally available for all users to benefit from. And today we have Ann Nash to help us understand the array of features we can use to help all of us to leverage our strengths and getting various tasks done on the Google Chromebook and Google suite of programs, and just doing them more easily and maybe better. So a huge welcome to Ann Nash from Google for joining us today. So Ann, would you please give a brief introduction to yourself and let's start your presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Diana, and Parents Helping Parents for having me today. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who's on the call and who might be watching this later at a later date. My name is Ann Nash. I work on the Google for Education team. So that's where I focus my full-time efforts on. So I work with schools. I'm based in Chicago, so I primarily work with school districts and education leaders and teachers and educators and all the folks in the entire kind of education ecosystem who are based around the Midwest. But yeah, very happy to be here today. I'm going to go ahead and Diana, I think I'm not able to share my screen while you're still sharing your screen. So I'll, there we go. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to share my screen so we can go and dive into our content today. And you might be wondering, okay, you said Annie or Ann, I go by either Annie or Ann. And you work on the education team. But what brings me here today to talk about accessibility? So part of what I do on our team, kind of in like if you've heard of Google 20% time, sometimes we're kind of blessed to work additional kind of portions of our day-to-day on a particular subject area or passion area. So accessibility is mine. I kind of work as my team's kind of accessibility expert in the field, but I don't full-time work on the actual accessibility products. So I work very closely with the product managers of both Google Workspace. We just renamed it. So it used to be called G Suite. Now it's Google Workspace. I myself am still getting used to that name change. I might slip up here and there, as well as Chromebooks. So I work with those teams quite often. All right. So one moment. I'm just going to double check. Diana, please keep me honest if there are any questions or if you're having a hard time hearing me or seeing the presentation. So one thing that I wanted to kind of model and demonstrate here. So I'm using Google Slides today, which is a part of Google Workspace, which I'll get into definitions soon. But what I'm doing is I'm going to show you and just use them today, the ability to have real-time captions when you are presenting on Google Slides. So just turn those on. And what you'll see here is I have the option to have them be at the top of the screen or at the bottom of the screen. I happen to have a couple of friends who are hard of hearing and rely on cart captioning themselves. And they inform me that they prefer the top of the screen. So I'm using the top today. Also, in case that is difficult to see, I can also change the size because that's a little small for me. So I just made it medium. So here we go. Okay. What I was thinking we would do today, we'll have a brief introduction. We'll talk about the accessibility features, and then I will leave you with where to find some more information. Okay. So by way of introduction, like I said, definitions. Google Workspace, what is it? So a lot of you, might have, your children and students who are, doing learning, whether it's remote or hybrid or in person, depending on where you are. A lot of times your students are using and have their own school Google account. And what that means is their school has signed up for Google Workspace for Education. And Google Workspace for Education is comprised of many of the different products you see here, different icons. So when you think of this, I think of Google Drive, which is where all of your files are saved in the cloud. They're saved automatically. You can access them across any device. And those files that I mentioned are things like Google Docs, Google Slides, which I'm using right now, Google Sheets for spreadsheets. Your students might be used to Google Forms because Google Forms can also be turned into quizzes that teachers like to use. Actually, what's not listed here, but super important for your kids and what they might be using, Google Classroom is considered a part of Google Workspace. So if their teachers are using Google Classroom with them, that is a part of this. And then some other things as well. Gmail, Google Meet for video conferencing, Google Calendar and chat, and then a few other things as well. So when I'm talking about Google Workspace, I'm talking about this entire kind of suite of productivity tools. Okay, so I like to always start off with the different assistive technologies that we all actually support. So not things built into the Google products, but by way of just, supporting additional assistive technology. Like I mentioned, Google Workspace works across devices. So whether you're using an iPad or a Windows laptop or a MacBook or a Chromebook or you name it, your phones, it works. So we support third-party assistive technology, keyboards, contrast enhancing tools, magnification tools, screen readers like JAWS and VBA, Braille displays, and additional captions software as well. And then, like I mentioned, it works across all of those platforms I just named. Okay, so let's dive into what accessibility features are built right into Google Workspace. So I mentioned real-time captions. So I'm modeling and demonstrating that right now via Google Slides, but also Google Meet. So kind of the, video conferencing platform that's built right into Google is called Google Meet. And there's real-time captions that are built into that as well. I think that I want to make an important distinction between kind of how the two work. When you're using slides, usually if you're presenting something, you're very much kind of in broadcast mode. So I, as the presenter, presenting the information, broadcasting live to you, I can turn on those captions with the intent that all of you as my audience would see them. On Google Meet, it's kind of the opposite. So Google Meet is on for every individual user to turn on for themselves if they want to. So it's not a case where I would turn it on for you as, again, the presenter or broadcaster, but rather you might choose to have the captions turned on for yourself if that would be helpful. All Drive files also support closed captions and caption files. So if this recording, for instance, obviously because we're recording my screen, these automated captions will be a part of that. But also Diana could have a caption file, and if she uploaded this video, this recording to Google Drive, for instance, she could attach that caption file to it. So anyone watching it recorded later would also see the captions via that format and that modality as well. So that's an important thing to make sure I noted. Okay, keyboards. So basically, if a user wanted to, you could interact with all of Google Workspace using only the keyboard. So there are many, many keyboard shortcuts that are part of Google Workspace. I'm just going to highlight kind of a few things. Again, my hope is think of our time here today as like a survey course. I'm giving you a survey and some things that hopefully pique your interest. And then later on, I'll make sure I give you some resources and things to follow up on if there are different things that you want to really dive into a bit more. So keyboard shortcuts might be one of those things. So in what we call editors, so if you hear me say that, what I'm talking about are Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides. You can find a list of keyboard shortcuts by using the control plus the / key. Same on MacBooks, but MacBooks have a command key instead of control. And then for other products, you use the shift key. But by doing that, and I'm going to see if I can pull that up. Hopefully you all can see that. I just did control and then the /, which AKA is like the question mark button. It pulls up keyboard shortcuts. So because I am in Google Slides right now, it is pulling up relevant keyboard shortcuts for a Google Slides presentation. If I were in a Google Doc, it would do the same thing for Google Docs, Sheets, etc. So I'm going to close that now. All right. Okay, so Google Workspace also supports voice typing. Google Docs has the most robust voice typing available because not only can you do speech to text and voice typing on the document, but it also can recognize different editing and formatting commands, things like next paragraph, add bullet points, and the like. So there are a lot, over, like it says here, over 150 commands available. So this is definitely something that's really cool. You find this under the tools menu when you're inside of a Google Doc. I'll also note that you are able to do voice typing on Google Slides as well, but it's only supported in the speaker note portion. So if you were wanting to write out some different speaker notes, that's where you can use voice typing. To use voice typing on the slide itself, you know, like right here, you're looking at this slide, it has text on it. I'll get to that a little bit later, but there is a way to do it, especially if your student or you are on, or any user is using a Chromebook, because right now I'm focusing on the Google Workspace side again of things, which is the software that works across any device. And a little bit later on, I'll focus on the built-in accessibility features that are built right into the Chromebook as a device itself. So putting a quick pin in that, and we'll revisit that later. Okay, magnification settings.
Before we move on with the voice typing, there's a quick question. Is there voice typing coming to the Google Mail, the Gmail?
That's a great question, Debbie. I'm trying to think. If it's not there? Because I feel like you might be able to do it at least on mobile right now. I'll have to look into it though, because to see if there's voice typing kind of in the same kind of functionality as the one that you see here in Google Docs, where you have the formatting and all the commands. I don't know, so let me take that, and I can work with Diana to try and get some more insight, because that's a great question.
Right. And one thing I did notice is I've gotten used to just pressing that FN button 2 times to get to wherever I am in the Google Suites, just to see if the voice typing is an option. And I do believe that I've used it in Gmail in some form. So try pressing the FN button 2 times to see if you can get that microphone icon to pop up.
Amazing. Thank you, Diana. That's awesome. All right. Okay, so a couple other things. Google Workspace does support high contrast modes. We call it dark mode. And so if it's helpful to have that dark theme, it works across most of the suite. So Gmail, Google Keep. If you're not familiar with Google Keep, it's really cool. It's actually what you're seeing here. It is our note-taking app. I love it. This is where we keep a family ongoing grocery list that I share with my husband, and that's how we manage our groceries. So it has that same kind of sharing ability that you have with all the rest of the Google kind of suite and Docs and Google Workspace. So Docs, Sheets, Slides, all of this you can turn on that dark mode if that would be helpful. Screen readers, I mentioned, it supports third-party screen readers, JAWS, and NVDA, but Chromebooks also have, so all of these are, again, still in the context of Google Workspace. Google Workspace will work with any of these screen readers. And then it also works with the built-in screen reader on Chromebooks, which I will talk a bit more about later, but that is called Chromebooks. VoiceOver is what is used on Mac. It can work on Mac, Chrome, and iOS. And then TalkBack is the built-in screen reader that is a part of Android phones or mobile devices. The other thing to note is when it comes to screen reader functionality, there is one extra step within a Google editor file, like a Google slide, doc, or sheet. You'll want to go to Tools and then Accessibility Settings. And from there, you would turn on, if you wanted or needed it, screen reader support. You can also turn on Braille support. And you also have the option to turn on some additional features under screen reader support. So collaborator announcements, telling someone who's in a doc who is, using their screen reader that another person has entered the doc and is making edits that can be very helpful. And then you would also want to turn on screen magnifier support. So there is that kind of one extra step to make sure that those settings are checked on and enabled before you want to use some of these additional tools when you're using Google Slides. All right. Okay, so Braille support, like I mentioned, that's also available. Generally, it's available whenever screen reader support is available. So another one where you go under that tools menu, ensure that your accessibility settings are on. And Braille mode is just in notes here, but useful for spoken feedback users, not just Braille users as well. So again, additional keyboard shortcuts there too, so you can toggle it on and off depending on what platform that you're on. All right, live edits in documents. Let's see. Pretty self-explanatory, but like one I mentioned, if you are using a screen reader, you can choose to turn on those collaborator announcements. But also, we have added this live edits kind of summary panel on the right-hand side, which just makes it easier to view in real time the different edits that other collaborators on your document might be making. So definitely it comes in most often handily for any assistive technology users. So that's the live edits panel. And then we also have built out a lot of just out-of-the-box accessible templates. So you find these when you are in your Google Drive and want to open up any particular file type. You'll see a whole kind of menu of different templates there across docs, sheets, and slides. Also, you can add alt text to images on docs, slides, and Google Sites. So being able to add those quick descriptions, again, for any screen reader users, you can add that alt text. We're just calling this the helpful intelligence. So Smart Compose and Smart Reply in Gmail. You've likely seen this if you've enabled it and allowed it to be on. But basically, Smart Compose in Docs is very helpful for drafting text. I'm always trying to remember the difference. So Smart Reply in Gmail is really talking about if you've ever seen when you receive an email, and what you can see here kind of highlighted, the machine generated responses that you might have. So just those quick tips. If you want to just have a quick response, you can choose those. So that's the Smart Reply versus Smart Compose is what is helping. You might sometimes see if you're writing a sentence, sometimes especially a sentence that you might write a lot, like please let me know, or something like that at the end of an email. It often will preempt, and then by pressing the tab key, you can auto fill in the rest of it without having to type the full sentence. So that works. Forms, Google Forms is really kind of cool in that it has some intelligence built in. For instance, if you were trying to collect t-shirt sizes for an event, if you started typing what size t-shirt, it might suggest to you extra small, medium, large, XL, 2XL, etc. And then you can just click if you wanted to add those, and would just automatically add those as the options that your users would have when they were replying to that form. So things like that are pretty cool. We have OCR, so optical character recognition, that can convert images of text into text. So again, very helpful for screen reader users. So if you have like a photo in Google Keep, let's say you took a photo and add that to one of your notes, or any kind of Drive file. If you open something that was from a PDF into one of those files, it can convert that optical character recognition image of text to real text. Trying to think what else. Slides. Slides also has some built-in formatting suggestions, layout suggestions. We have something called the Explore button. You'll always find it in the lower right-hand corner when you're actually editing that document. You'll find it in Slides, you'll find it in Google Sheets, and you'll find it in Google Docs. In Google Slides, what it does, so if you didn't want to spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to best format it, you just want to get your thoughts down, it will literally generate like some really nice looking templates and make your slides look really sleek and professional with honestly just a click of a button, which is cool. And then Google Sheets also has something similar in that, again, using this explore button to just make your life easier. So if you had a spreadsheet with data, and let's say, spreadsheets aren't your comfort zone, or, you're not super familiar with the different formulas that you might use, or even some really advanced formulas, you can actually type in using kind of just natural language, like, hey, Google, what was the average cost of or price of the best-selling school bakery prize? That's a really bad example, but something like that along those lines, just again, using like a natural language question, it can recognize that, and it would run that kind of formula in the background and be able to surface the answer to you. The cool thing too is if you wanted to understand how it came up with that, you can kind of dig into it, and it will show you what formulas were used, and if you were interested in learning, how to do that on your own someday too. So yes, Elena, I believe most of these are. I'd have to take it offline to make sure I can follow up with Diana to absolutely confirm that everything meets WCAG 2.1. I'd have to double check on all of that in section 508. But yes, for the most part, a lot of these things do meet a lot of those different accessibility compliance standards. But I don't want to speak too broadly when I'm not 100% sure, just because I don't live and breathe accessibility like I had mentioned. So I'll have to get back to you on all of that. But great question. All right, I'm going to shift gears. So I just spent a lot of time talking about Google Workspace. Now I'm going to talk about Chromebooks instead. So I think this is an overview. I'll dig into all of this, but Chromebooks themselves as just a device have built-in visual support, audio and captioning as well. Like I mentioned, some screen reader support. I'll talk about that in a bit more detail, and different alternative input. And then there are a whole host of accessibility Chrome extensions that work on the Chrome browser. And actually on that side of things, Chrome browser extensions work on a Chrome browser. So you might be using a Chrome browser on a Mac device or a Windows device. Those extensions should work there as well. Okay, so for students who are low vision, again, just built in directly to the Chromebook. So I think the one thing to think about here too, where I was talking about Workspace, those are within those specific Google tools. The nice thing about the Chrome accessibility features are that these are working across whatever it is that you might have up on your screen, whether or not it was a Google Workspace document, or if it's a website, or if it's another application. So for students who are low vision, the ability to increase the size of your cursor. We also just launched different highlighting colors of your cursor too. So you can change your color your cursor to, I think, 7 different colors now. Mine on my other Chromebook device is magenta right now. You can turn on and off high contrast mode. You can also highlight your cursor. So literally just making sure it's easier to follow where your cursor is. It can have a round halo that just makes it easier to track. Zoom and magnify settings, multiple ways to zoom and magnify, including keyboard shortcuts, and also including a dock magnifier settings, which I know when I've talked to different folks who use it, some people love it. Some people are like, no, that's not for me. I just want my entire screen to be magnified. But the dock magnifier, again, some people really prefer this. It takes 1/3 of the screen at the top, and that it will magnify the rest of your screen. So it's just it's another way of kind of navigating the magnification settings and how that looks on your screen as you're navigating. And then automatic alt text as well. So being able to like a Chromebook, let's say that you come across an image and you're using the Chromebook screen reader, and there was an alt text added to an image on a website. Chromebooks can help. They'll actually generate that automatically for a user. So even if someone had forgotten to add alt text, it can create that automatic alt text for them. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so for helping students to read and understand remote text remotely, we said remotely. Obviously, this works for in person as well if they wanted to, but we were focusing on distance learning for a bit. We have something called Select to Speak in addition to the Chromebox screen reader. So I've mentioned Chromebox a couple times now. Again, this is that full screen reader that's built into the device, and it read everything from alt text to headings. Think of it very much as like that full-blown screen reader. Select to Speak does exactly what it sounds like it does. It allows someone to just highlight a portion or a paragraph that they want to have read aloud and have that speech to text, or no, text to speech, excuse me. And we've built in a few other things actually super recently. So even this automation that you're seeing here doesn't highlight the fact that you can now also choose to have it when you highlight a paragraph that you want to have read aloud, you can create have the rest of the screen be shaded, so it's just easier to follow along. You can see here it highlights which words are being read aloud. And then we also just launched in the most recent version of the Chrome operating system the ability to pause, fast forward, and rewind. So just making it easier, and like the ability to speed up and skip to different paragraphs more easily. So just building in a bit more functionality right built into the Select to Speak on every Chromebook. And then I highlighted it here just because in education, a lot of our partners are super popular, and they might be things that you've seen or that you use or that your students use. Partners like Text Help, which has the Read and Write tool, is a Chrome extension that has similar Select to Speak type functionality, but even more robust. Don Johnston also has great tools, Co-Writer. Those are all Google partners and integrate with our Google tools quite well as well. So I wanted to just call those out. Okay, for students with limited hearing, I mentioned Google Meet captions, Google Slides captions. Again, those are actually more on the workspace side. Obviously work across any platform, any device. And then mono audio is something though that's built it right into the Chromebook. So being able to play the same audio out of both speakers to make that easier. Oh, and I should also mention Chrome, I believe browser, at least browser, if not also the operating system, now also has something called live transcribe. I'm trying to think, is that what we're calling it? No, live captions, sorry. Live captions, so you can turn that on via your browser settings, for example, and then any media that you're playing will automatically start to generate those captions for you. So that's great, if you're watching a recording and there's not a caption, there aren't captions there, your device itself would start to caption it for you. Or if you're using the browser would be able to do that again on a different device as well, even if it wasn't a Chromebook. So wanted to make mention of that. That's also relatively new. So live captions, that's a setting you can find in Chrome browser. All right. Guiding students with maybe writing challenges, or just if it's difficult to do, just use a regular keyboard. Chromebooks have built-in dictation, so dictation into any field. So literally, this is where I mentioned before, if you were using a Google slide or creating a Google slide on a Chromebook, you could actually use the dictation feature of your Chromebook to type in, have some words written right onto the slide itself versus the speaker notes, which is where the voice typing also supports. But so dictation into any field where you would be able to type. There's on-screen keyboard as well. We have automatic mouse settings too. So if you turn that on, literally if you're moving a mouse around, for example, we have like automatic clicks. So you wouldn't actually have to press the clicker button on the mouse. It would kind of count down. You see it count down, I think it's around 2 seconds, and then it would click whatever it could click right wherever your mouse was hovering. And then sticky keys, helpful if it's difficult to hold down multiple keys at one time. So if you're using all those keyboard shortcuts I mentioned, there are a lot on Google Workspace. Chromebooks also have a lot of keyboard shortcuts. So you could use sticky keys. And so instead of having, pressing down Control, Alt, and /, you could just click them or press them down one at a time in a row, and it would recognize that as the keyboard command and shortcut. All right. I won't go into all of these, but and this is by no means comprehensive, but there are a lot of just different partners out there who have built accessibility apps and extensions. Things like the Google Color Enhancer that's helping with customizable color filters. It can help improve color perception. MagX is an additional magnifier. I mentioned Read and Write and Co-Writer, Beeline Reader, helping reduce eye strain, dyslexic-friendly font. Stay Focused is kind of a cool one too, so helping limit how much time you spend on each site. A few things, Magic Scroll helps remove clutter on a busy website. So again, just helping improve focus. So there's a whole bunch of other things to check out. There's also the Google Docs. This is something Google created. So if you go docs.new or slides.new, there's just a really quick, easier way to get a brand new file that you want, a Google file that you wanted. So we made that I don't know, forgetting when we launched that. But that's something I use all the time. Okay, really getting to the end of my talking at you. I just wanted to highlight a few other features in addition to Workspace and Chrome. Some of the built-in Android features are pretty cool. So I mentioned TalkBack, which is the built-in screen reader on Android devices. Live Transcribe is a really great one too. So if you're someone who's hard of hearing or deaf, your phone can basically transcribe someone who is talking to you as long as they're nearby. It will use your microphone to transcribe their audio into text. And so you can communicate that way. And then you can either type back or talk back to them. So that's Live Transcribe. I mentioned live caption for calls is again, captioning on a call on your Android phone when you're having a discussion. So that's great. And then two other ones, Lookout. So Lookout uses your device to help you, again, if you are blind or low vision, help you navigate your surroundings is what Lookout can do. And then Action Blocks, that's a really cool one. It's developed by a team here at Google that focuses on building tools for people with cognitive disabilities. So Action Blocks basically lets you change the interface of your Android device, and you can pre-program a few, top actions that you might use on your phone. For instance, if you call you can program to call your mom, and all you would have to do, it would just show up as one kind of block, a picture block on your phone. So it just simplifies the interface. You click it and it will automatically do that action. So you're kind of setting it up to do that. Or what's another, maybe you're setting your alarm. It can send you directly to how to do that, or opening a specific location on Google Maps or something like that. You can kind of pre-program all of those settings ahead of time. So that's what Action Blocks are. Oh, okay, cool. So just a few tips. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here when it comes to all of this, but I just wanted to share a few tips that our team has heard as we've worked with educators over the years. So a few things. For example, I know I've heard of folks who might have students who might have an aide that sits with them in class. Even just sharing a document between that student and the aide can be another way that the student can feel a bit more autonomous in the class, and still ask that question and be in communication with the aide while they maybe sit in the back of the class or somewhere else. They can even be, another part of the building, another facility altogether. So that's just one kind of idea. Calendar sharing. So sharing calendars with students and guardians, especially when it comes to assignment dates, that's super helpful and something that we've seen folks do. Color coding Drive files, math, everything math related is blue. So there's a lot of different functionality just built into Google Drive to help organize. I'm actually using Google Slides as an example instead of Google Docs as a note-taking app. It can make segmenting easier. There's a lot of things that Google Slides I see, especially in education. A lot of teachers and educators are using them in super creative ways. So Google Slides they're kind of they're deceptively simple, and I've seen them be used in some really creative ways. Think like choose your own adventure type stories. I've seen people do things like that in Google Slides and a whole host of other things. And then Google Forms. So, using Google Forms to maybe capture like some IEP data in the sense of maybe a teacher is working with a student on a particular set of vocabulary words. They can use that Google form to kind of capture and track, how they're doing in kind of learning that vocabulary. And then it's all stored because a Google form on the back end, you can see all the responses as a Google spreadsheet. So you can have that spreadsheet, and then obviously with the spreadsheet, you can manipulate it any way that you want to help kind of track things over time. So just a few additional ideas. All right, so getting more information. So like I said, hopefully this served as like a survey course, and we have a whole host of other resources. So Google just has our accessibility website, google.com/accessibility. We have an accessibility help center as well. We have a specific Google Workspace help center and actually a Google Chrome help center. I just don't have it listed, but you would be able to find that from a quick Google search of Chrome accessibility help center, or even from like the google.com/accessibility site. And then specifically in education, we also on our edu.google.com site have an accessibility page too that you can find. And then furthermore, if you want to get in touch, we do have specifically a support agents. So you can, you can email at accessible@googlegroups.com. Or you can go to g.co/disability support. You can chat with them. You can talk to them via phone or email. And we also have support for ASL and also through the Be My Eyes app. All right. And that's all I had for all of you. So I'll make sure I work with Diana to get you these slides, some of those links that I had mentioned. But yeah, any other questions?
Yeah. So we had, getting back to that last bit about the voice typing and the Gmail, it looks like the tip about FN button has been clarified by the non-Mac users that that's a MacBook or Mac operating system specific way of pulling up the microphone, and someone else shared that she's able to get the microphone on and do voice typing in a Windows platform by the +H keyboard shortcut, +H for voice typing on a Windows computer. So that's very helpful.
Yeah.
And then here's a question. So somebody asked earlier, and I answered earlier that the Google Workspace is just that the new name for the cluster of Google's suite programs of Gmail, the calendar, the Drive, the chat, Meet, Docs, Sheets, and Slides. And you said and more. Are there any others that you think are on the hot list there?
Yeah, let's see. So yeah, forms I mentioned. There's something called Google Jamboard. That is it's an online whiteboarding collaboration software that we have that's a part of G Suite. I'm trying to think. Those are some of the core ones. I know we said Meet. Yep. No, that's Forms Jamboard. Those are really the high ones. I might be forgetting something, but yeah, those are the main ones. Yeah, for sure.
Sounds good. Okay, and then here's a question. Is Google Workspace fully accessible with voice input and output, or is vision required at some point?
Great question. I believe that Google Workspace is, let me just go to that so I can see it. Voice input and output. I'm trying to think. So apart from screen reader capability, Um, I think it is from an output standpoint, because it does have the screen reader capability. From an input standpoint, though, I'm hesitant to say fully, only because that voice typing, for example, would work when you're typing within that document, but not necessarily to command like navigation of the entire Google Workspace itself or like the particular file. So that's why I say maybe half credit on that particular piece.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question is, a blind relative is constantly frustrated by intermittent requirement to see a screen in order to navigate and perform tasks using voice only. Is there exclusively voice command responsiveness in this platform of tools without using screen reader to navigate?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Diana, it seems a little similar to the one just before in terms of like just using voice commands to navigate the entire system. I do not believe that we have that, but because this has now come up twice, I'm going to make sure that I do connect with my Google Workspace counterpart, whose full-time role is program manager of accessibility of Google Workspace, to double check to see if I'm missing anything. But I don't believe that does exist, at least built into Google Workspace as of today.
Okay, that'd be great. Whatever you collect, I will forward on to our participants.
And if nothing else, these are fantastic, obviously use cases and feature requests. So at the very least, those are great things to bring up. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and great input for a Google rep to bring back to the team.
Totally.
Okay. Here's another question about Google Translate. Other than Google Translate, is a translating function integrated anywhere else, like captions or Google Slides?
I'm trying to think. Not that I know of outside, though I think we might see some more things along those lines coming to like Meet, for example. We've kind of talked about potentially having like translated captions on the roadmap down the line for that. And then there's also something we do have something called Google Translate API that's part of our cloud system. But so we do have some more advanced translation capabilities, but it's more to kind of build into other systems via an API. So not that like direct to user, super easy to use compatibility. So I think Translate. Oh, you know what? As I'm just thinking about this, Google Assistant. So if you can pull that up on your phone, I know I've done this on my Chromebook as well. You can pull it up there. You can have that be a translator for you. So you can say, hey, Google, be my Malaysian translator. And then you can say, hello, Diana. And it would then speak out, hello, Diana, in Malaysian. And it supports a lot of different languages. So that is certainly something to check out and maybe try. So Google Assistant would be the other one to check out in addition to Google Translate.
That's a great idea. One thing that we also mentioned to individuals who might have organizational issues or planning issues is to start to tap into some of the features in these types of AI options, like, they have Alexa and Siri and the Google Assistant. And so what other things are integrated with Google Assistant that might be useful for a student to tap into in that type of learning environment?
Oh my gosh.
Or even at home.
Yeah, probably so many things. Like I can't even. Google Assistant has just come so far. I mean, honestly, just even as a personal user myself, I have my Google Assistant, like my home, Google Nest Hub thing, and I ask it questions. I'm like, wow, like there's so many things it can do. So I'm not like thinking of really fantastic things off the top of my head, but I think there's a lot it can do in addition to being a translator, as well as just, asking it basic questions, playing music, do certain things, surface. And depending on what kind of device you're using, if you're using a Google Home, which is going to be more just audio, like voice to audio, or if you're using one of the Google Hub devices that have a screen, or you're using it on your device, like a phone, a mobile device, it will be able to surface different types of content depending on what the modality would be. So I don't have a great answer, but there's a whole lot of things.
No, that's great. I mean, you're right. There's so many things, but some of the ones that I find especially useful that we do use here is like countdown timers or setting alarms, adding to calendar, like add into my calendar, webinar at Thursday at 3 p.m.
Oh, yeah. Or reminders. I think you can do that. Like, hey, Google, remind me to call Diana, or you know what I mean? Like there are things like that as well. Yeah. Great examples.
Right. So, for individuals that might struggle with reading and writing, using their voice, because maybe speaking aloud is a great strength of theirs. So leveraging that to get other things done. So
yeah, that's a great example.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I think there's one more question. It says, let's see, might Google Assistant be a vehicle for developing fully integrated accessibility via voice only? Would be very grateful for work on such system capability for blind users. So getting back to the theme of addressing the visual impaired, I think this is something you can take back.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a fantastic suggestion and something great thing to point out. So yeah, absolutely. We'll take that back.
Yeah. And these things, like you mentioned, are evolving so quickly that, next week there's another release of some other great features. So, where should people look on your website to find the most updated tutorials and information about these accessible features?
Yeah, I think you cannot go wrong with starting off with the google.com/accessibility site. Just like the kind of comprehensive basic Google accessibility site is going to be a great place to start. To probably dig into a bit more of the kind of more technical side of things, like how might you really get started with things, I would check out then I can go back to it. Am I sharing my screen? I think I am. Oh yeah, I am.
Not yet.
Okay, here. Let me see. The Help Center might be another really great place to start, because check out, because you might be able to find more information about, hey, does this work with this other particular tool? How does this work on my MacBook? Like some of those more details you would find probably in the Help Center more than the overall site.
Okay, great tip. All right, I'm scanning to see if there are any other questions. All right. Well, other than that, I think that was a fabulous presentation. I certainly learned quite a bit, and to see, kind of getting you to explain the whole new workplace definition, because I was thrown off whether it's a whole new something else to learn about, but it's just a packaging name.
Same great products, new name. Yeah.
That's great. Well, that was a really packed presentation. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, Anne, for being our wonderful guest speaker today and taking time out of, a busy evening in Chicago. Hopefully there's time to still take care of what you need to do with your family there. And thank you, everybody else, for tuning in and joining. Check out php.com for other events coming up. All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye.